Are you ready for a Range Rover that's electric? Well, I guess the world was ready for a while and they promised us one a while back too. The promise is now being delivered. When the fifth generation of the Range Rover first came out in 2022, there was always this whole talk about how there will be the regular ICE, the PHEV and EV versions of the car. Now we're finally ready to start talking about this, but it's the same MLA architecture that you see here. And the reason why this cutout has actually been created is to actually show how it is different on this car as compared to those other different variants which are powered by fueled engines. Now, the whole point was that while you have completely different architecture that sits at the floor of the car, and it of course has a different attribute, the car's own attributes had to remain the same, which means similar size, stance, capability, and of course even use of space. There had to be no compromise when it came to things like boot space or cabin space or even wheelbase. All of that is pretty much identical to the ICE version of the Range Rover. What you see here, of course, is the 118 kilowatt hour NMC battery. And, besides the fact that this was supposed to be all about having the kind of range that people want, it's also about the Range Rover capability, and which means you've got the two motor setup, which talks to the whole all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive aspect of this car and how capable it becomes off-road. But while I'm on this whole cutout, I want to also tell you that this is also the most patented Range Rover ever. If that's a fact that interests you, 67 patents just when it comes to this battery setup and the electric setup. And that is saying something. There was a reason why all of this work was done in-house, because according to the engineers here, the idea was not to shop around and pick up something that already existed because, they say that it just did not suit what they needed this car to be able to do and for it to really be a Range Rover. And I think that's the part that becomes interesting for me. So it's all an in-house development. It has taken time for that reason. All right, this is all well and good. Let's cue the music and show you the actual car. The thing with this car is that it was always developed from word go as also having the electric avatar. And so the reason I say this is just to sort of emphasize the point that a lot of things were baked in at the very start of this development cycle. It's not like they took the regular ICE car and then derived it or re-engineered it just to sort of fit the electric requirement. Why is that important? Well, just so you know that it means that having the electric was always part of even the design. And so when you look at this car, this particular one may be a prototype, and so there could be some color and material differences on the production car, but essentially it's exactly the same as the ICE version. There are a few subtle differences like aerodynamic wheels or a few changes, in fact, for aero specifically, which goes without saying for an electric, like a smooth underbody and battery protection. But otherwise, what you're looking at is pretty much the same thing, including the fact that you also have the different versions of the car. So the long wheelbase and the regular wheelbase. Just like on the ICE version, you'll have it on the BEV too. Now, I remember in 2022 when I drove the regular ICE version of this car, the new generation. At the time, we were already talking about how the BEV is round the corner, it's coming. Now it's ready for getting to the market soon enough. The point, though, is the anticipation has been pretty huge, and there's been so much talk and expectation from different markets that we already have 62,000 orders ready and waiting. 400, almost 500 of those are from the Indian market. So no doubts about it being well received in India, but it's going to be expensive and it's going to be niche. Right, time to get into the car. And for a change, I am not in the driver's seat. Whether you're driving or whether you're being driven, when it comes to any kind of test or experience with a Range Rover, as much as most buyers may not be doing this on a regular basis, going off-road and having the capability is a huge part of the credentials this car has to have. That's what that badge carries with it after all, right? And so when it comes to the fact that you have the BEV version, it has to still emulate or match the capability that you see on the ICE car. And so for what it's worth now, with all the dust you might be picking up flying around me, we're on a nice little off-road section and it doesn't feel very different really, despite the fact that the center of gravity is very different on this car. All right, the idea of coming here on the high-speed track is, of course, to see the dynamics of the car, because for all its capability off-road, the Range Rovers have just gotten better and better on the tarmac too, haven't they? All the things that have been the hallmark of that in terms of performance with the ICE cars over the last few years especially, torque vectoring, going around corners at higher speeds, having the stability, lesser roll with literally every generation that we've seen. Not only has that been carried over to this car, in many ways you benefit from that lower center of gravity and you actually get lesser roll on this electric version. You also have the enhanced dynamics being brought in by things like the rear wheel steering, and a lot of that has to do with even the electronics or the software that's in play here, because while you do have the dual motor setup on a lot of different cars, don't forget that a lot of this work has been done in-house here. So you're not just sort of carrying over the capability or the knowledge from some other supplier. A lot of that work has actually happened right here at JLR. It still feels every bit like a Range Rover, and I know how difficult it would have been for the people working behind the scenes to get that done. The 800-volt high-voltage battery is the first one to be designed and built in-house at JLR. The electric SUV gets a 117 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which has 344 prismatic cells in a double-stack layout. We don't have the power and torque figures as yet, though. And there is one thing with this BEV that isn't like the regular Range Rover. This is also the quietest Range Rover ever. That's a nice claim because it's a car that's kind of known for that quiet and smoothness. Now, you might think that, hey, but with an electric, isn't that just kind of obvious? Well, in part, that is true, but then you've got to be a little bit more cognizant of things like, say, NVH levels, the road noise, the wind noise, all of that coming into the car, into the cabin. To also sort of complement that, you also have something called the bespoke Range Rover sound design, and you have 3 different sound modes. So you have calm, normal, and dynamic. And of course, as you can imagine, I don't have to really explain those. You do hear it. It's a sort of an enhanced sound. A lot of electrics have that today. It's certainly something that makes dynamic driving literally just a lot more fun. Finally, the question remains, did I like this new avatar of the Range Rover? It depends on who's driving, where you're going, and what sort of experience you want. All of this is great in terms of getting a nice introduction or a first feel of the electric Range Rover. Highly dissatisfied, of course, because I'm not driving. But, that's one of the reasons why sitting in the back becomes a little relevant, because not only is this a Range Rover where a lot of people like spending their time in the back, in our market in particular, most buyers would be back here, isn't it? No exact date yet for the India launch or the price, but needless to say, it is going to be for the driven. Pun intended, and it will be a true blue Range Rover if this first experience and the claims from the company are anything to go by.